بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على المبعوث رحمة للعالمين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. أما بعد, dear brothers and sisters in Islam, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to this new episode of Ask Zad, coming to you from Zad Studios here in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. Our first question for tonight is from Safiya. Safiya says, is not wearing the Islamic hijab a major sin? What is the punishment for women who display their makeup and clothes in public? There is an Arabic word for this, which is tabarruj. And this word was mentioned in chapter 33, where Allah Azza wa Jal prohibited exposing your awrah as a woman like they used to do in pre-Islamic era. وَلَا تَبَرَّجْنَا تَبَرُّجَ الْجَاهِلِيَّةِ. And this by itself is sinful. Whether it is a major sin or a minor sin is not of great importance to us, because when a Muslim looks at the size of the sin, he neglects whom he is sinning against. But if you look at Allah the Almighty, His greatness, His excellence, and that you are sinning against Him, who's all watching, all hearing, who provides for you, who controls every breath you take. You cannot inhale without His permission, and you cannot exhale without His permission. Yet you insist on sinning, then you are in great trouble. Whether it is a major sin or a minor sin is beside the point. A major sin, as defined by scholars, is every sin that Allah Azza wa Jal has placed a prescribed punishment in this dunya, such as slandering, consuming intoxicants, fornication, adultery, stealing, etc. So either there is a prescribed punishment in this dunya, or Allah Azza wa Jal has placed a curse on those who do such things, such as dealing in usury, riba, interest-based loans, bribery. All of these, whoever does such things is cursed by Allah Azza wa Jal. Women who pluck their eyebrows, people who apply tattoos to others or to themselves, women who wear hair extensions, etc. Or any sin that Allah Azza wa Jal told us that whoever does this will be admitted to hellfire. And there are so many of them. Therefore, if you look at not abiding by the hijab, a woman who shows her hair, or wears revealing clothes, or wear makeup, and does not care whether non-mahram men look at her or not, is this a major sin or not? The Prophet told us, alayhi salatu wasalam, and the hadith is in the Sahih, that there are two types of people he did not see, yet they are among the people of hell. And he mentioned one of them to be women who are dressed yet nude, meaning that either they're wearing transparent clothes, you can see through it, so that she's actually nude, or she's wearing tight clothes that reveals her aura, her body curves, her bone structure, as if she's not wearing anything. And the Prophet said, alayhi salatu wasalam, that they wear their hair on top of their heads like a camel's hump. When they walk in a way that is a bit tilted and would make others tilted as well when they look at them because of their beauty and their charm. So the Prophet told us that they are from the people of hell. In another hadith, he said, curse them because they are cursed by Allah Azza wa Jal, which is an indication that this is indeed a major sin. Therefore, whoever does such an act of exposing her awra, her beauty, in a fashion that would turn heads towards her, she's either committing a kabira, a major sin, or a minor sin. And this depends on the level of her tabarruj. A woman who covers her body totally, only exposes her face, yet wears makeup, eyeliners, shadow, foundation on her skin. She is doing tabarruj. But her sin is not as severe as a woman who exposes her hair or wears revealing clothes or tight clothes, etc. And as I said earlier, one should fear Allah Azza wa Jal by not indulging in sins and asking whether it's a major or a minor one, rather to look at Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who He is sinning against. Sidra says, when is the last time to pray Maghrib? In terms of time, because it is impossible to look at the redness in the sky when you are living in the city. Kindly tell an approximate time. So Sidra wants me to say that after sunset, you have 70 minutes of Maghrib, and the 71st moment after sunset, this is Isha time. Sidra, I'm afraid that this is not possible, because prayer times are based on the location of the sun. Whether it is the break of dawn, whether it has passed the area of the meridian or the zenith when it goes a little bit to the west, whether it is midway where the erected object's shade to the east is equivalent to its length, and this is Asr time, whether the sun had set, this is Maghrib time, and whether the redness in the horizon has disappeared. And this is the time when Isha begins up till the middle of the night. Now, how is it possible to fix a time for that when we have different seasons? We know that the length of the day and the length of the night differ in the winter and the summer. So in summer, we have a very long day and a short night. In winter, we have the opposite, a very long night and a very short daytime. So you cannot fix this. You cannot say, I'd like to know how much exactly is it between Dhuhr and Asr. Like 2 hours, 1 hour and a half, 3 hours. You cannot tell that because seasons differ and countries differ as well. So even if summer in Saudi Arabia, the longest of the day would be like 15, 16 hours, maybe 17 hours. If you go to the UK or some parts of Europe, it may extend to 20 hours or 19 and a half or 21 hours. So it differs according to the season and according to the location of your country. Now, having said that, the most reliable calendar or timetable that you can work with is Qura, calculations. And this goes for Fajr, Dhuhr, Asr, and Maghrib. That is sunset. Isha is not accurate because it is fixed throughout the year to 1.5 hours after sunset. And this is not true. And it's not practical. And it differs. So Isha timing is definitely off in Qura timetable. How long is it between Maghrib and Isha? Average in normal countries would be 50 minutes to 70 minutes. It does not reach an hour and a half. Some countries, the redness, which is coming after the sun had set in the direction of the west, disappears totally after 50 minutes, 55 minutes. And sometimes it goes up to an hour and 10 minutes. But it does not usually exceed that. So if you are able to do that, alhamdulillah. If not, then have it fixed at 1.5 hours just to be safe and pray after that, insha'Allah. Zainab says, a few months ago, I would sometimes pray some prayers 10 minutes before the next prayer or before midnight, in the case of Isha. And then the adhan for the next prayer would go while I had 1 rak'ah or in the tashahhud. Are these prayers valid? This question has two parts. Is what Zainab doing correct? And are the prayers valid or not? As whether it's correct or not to delay the prayers till this extent, definitely this is not correct. In the hadith of Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, may Allah be pleased with him, it's in the Sahih. He said, I asked the Prophet ﷺ, which deeds are most beloved to Allah Azza wa Jal? A straightforward question. So the Prophet said, ﷺ, in the first choice and first reply, he said, to pray on time. As-salatu ala waqtiha. And in another narration, he said, to pray at the beginning of the time. As-salatu awwalu waqtiha. This indicates that the quicker you are to pray, the better. With an exception of two prayers. The first prayer is Dhuhr. In summer, when it is burning hot, the Prophet told us, ﷺ, in order to ease it for his companions who come and attend the salat in the masjid, he said, delay it until it cools down. And scholars say that delaying it until just before Asr time is best for the companions because it's too hot. Nowadays, women in their homes should pray at the beginning of the time because whether it's in the beginning or the end, the temperature is the same in their homes. With the air conditionings now, alhamdulillah, we don't have to delay it until it cools down because it's already cool in the masjids with the air conditionings. Number two, Salatul Isha, the prayer of Isha, because the Prophet told us, ﷺ, it is best to delay it until the first third of the night has gone. So approximately, we're talking about 10:30 p.m., approximately, give or take, to 11. And this is for women who pray at homes. But for those who pray in congregation, this is not applicable because most people pray 15 minutes after the adhan of Isha, maximum of 20 minutes. Other than that, pray the prayer at the very beginning of the time. Just after the mu'adhin gives the adhan, give 10 minutes, 15 minutes for sunnah prayer and to get prepared, and then call for the prayer. Now, delaying it just before the time ends is dangerous. And not only that, it is a sign of hypocrisy. The Prophet told us, alayhi salatu wasalam, that the prayer of a hypocrite, and subhanAllah, a hypocrite, we know that he is evil and that he's in hell, yet they pretend to pray where actually their intent is corrupt. They lack sincerity, and as a sign of that, they pray on their own, but they choose to pray just right before the time ends. In the case of Asr, just right before the sun sets. So the Prophet tells us that they sit idle. They do not pray Asr prayer until they see that the sun is just about to sit. The sun is just about to set. They go and pray it in a very fast fashion. Like when the roaster takes grain from the ground. They just do this as sujood. This is what the Prophet tells us, alayhi salatu wasalam. So it is very dangerous. Now, coming back to the validity of salat, is it valid or not? The Prophet told us, alayhi salatu wasalam, whoever offers one rak'ah, which is a complete rak'ah, before the sun sets, he had prayed in the right time. So if you finished one full unit of Asr, and while you were in the second unit, reciting, for example, the Fatiha, the sun had completely set, your prayer is valid. But if you began your prayer and you did not finish a full rak'ah, a full unit, and the sun had set, this prayer was not performed on time. Therefore, Zainab, you should be very careful and you should ask Allah for forgiveness, because what you had done in the past is extremely wrong and dangerous. The Prophet ﷺ, by the way, whenever he was among his companions, he used to say and address Bilal. And Bilal was the one appointed to call for the prayer. So he used to say, Bilal, arihna biha. O Bilal, comfort us with prayers. Call for the prayer. So the Prophet viewed prayers as a comfort to the soul. Nowadays, we are hastened to pray not as a form of comfort, rather as a form of relief. So instead of saying, "O Bilal, comfort us with it," we say, "O Bilal, relieve us from it. Quickly, come on, let's get it over with." We just want to take the burden off our shoulders. And this shows you the difference between them and us. Abdul Rahman says, if one is in a class, is it permissible to lie and say he wants to go to the toilet in order to pray? Or is this lying and not permissible? First of all, lying, Abdul Rahman, is totally prohibited in Islam. So whatever you do, you try to dodge the issue, the question. You try to give ambiguous answers that can accept two meanings so that you do not lie. But you do not lie. Straightforward? No. Now, in your case, and this unfortunately happens a lot to people who are at work or to people who go to school in non-Muslim countries, and they find harassment, and they find trouble praying on time because their boss, their teachers, the management would not allow them to do so. First of all, you have to abide by your religion. You have to be proud with your religion. And you have to be firm in practicing your religion. Why is it that sometimes we find Muslims weak and ashamed, in a sense, of their beliefs? So people may not pray Dhuhr, may not pray Asr, may not pray Maghrib, and they combine all of this at the end of the day with Isha. Why? They're ashamed of praying in an airport or in a mall or in a park and people looking at them. Subhanallah. There's no reason to be ashamed of your beliefs unless you're not convinced of it. And this is problematic. So you have to demand your rights. This is part of your belief and religion. Now, for students and workers, sometimes workers or employees write to me and say that we cannot pray. I don't understand how you can say that you cannot pray when you have 8 to 10 hours that you work and you need to go to the toilet. You must have a coffee break. A lot of them smoke and take time off for smoking. You can't have the same 5 minutes to pray. This is unbelievable, not realistic. So there is no problem, Abdurrahman, for you to ask permission to go to the toilet. And you can go to the toilet, wash your hands, and pray. But to say that I want to go to the toilet and you don't go, just simply to pray, this is a lie. Saying that I'd like to go to the toilet and you do go to the toilet, wash your hands or take a napkin or whatever, and come out and pray in 5 minutes and come back is totally permissible, and there's nothing wrong in that, insha'Allah Azza wa Jal. Kinza says, in Pakistan, when nikah is done, the groom says, Qabool hai, 3 times. It means, yes, I accept. And then the Maulana or Molvi goes to the girl and asks her, then he says, or she says, I accept 3 times. Is this a Sharia-based nikah? I'm confused about a Maulana going to the girl and sitting with her and asking her. It is not Islamic, correct? First of all, the Maulana, in Arab countries, they call him Al-Ma'dhoon. What is the ruling of having such a person to conduct the marriage? Islamically, these people do not exist. This is an administrative issue related to bookkeeping, registrars, but it has nothing to do with the validity of marriage. Marriage in Islam is quite simple. The guardian of the girl makes a proposal, not the opposite. It's not the groom who makes the proposal. In the marriage contract, the girl's guardian is the one who makes the proposal by saying, I give you my daughter in marriage. This is a proposal. Now, the groom, the boy, has to give his consent and approval. And he says, I accept her marriage to myself. And this proposal and acceptance has to be in the presence of 2 male Muslims or more. By this, the marriage has taken place. The Ma'dhoon or the Maulana or the registrar only documents this. So whether he's here or not, this is irrelevant. It has nothing to do with the validity of the marriage. Now, does he go and ask the girl? When he has to register something, he has to hear the acceptance of the girl himself. Saying the proposal 3 times and the acceptance 3 times is not from Islam. This is part of what some schools of thought teach, so that there would not be any ambiguity and the man would be certain, the girl would be certain, etc. But this is not as part of the Sunnah. The Sunnah is once. The guardian says, I give you my daughter in marriage. The boy says, I accept. And the girl's approval is inclusive in the sense that if the marriage takes place and all of a sudden they go to the girl's house and they say, Mabruk, congratulations, you're married now. She said, nobody asked me, nobody consulted me. She has all the right to reject this marriage and deny it. And it would be considered void. No one can force her to marry someone she does not want. But in 99.9%, it's the father who goes to the girl and says, we're going to make your marriage contract tonight, tomorrow, next week. Are you okay with this? Muhammad is marrying you, the son of Abdullah or so-and-so. And she approves of it and she agrees to it. Khalas, it's done. We don't have to bring the girl in front of the witnesses and tell them or to listen to her. And Allah Azza wa Jal knows best. We have a short break. Stay tuned and inshallah, we'll be right back.
Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Today I'm going to talk about the book Interactions of the Greatest Leader. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam reminded us through his guidance and example that Islam is complete submission to the will of Allah. For one who submits, a mere declaration or display of belief will not be taken for success, but his or her heart and soul will certainly be put to test. Allah tested the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam severely in order that he sallallahu alaihi wasallam becomes an example for his companions to follow. Similarly, he tests the believer to see whether he lives a righteous life in accordance with the instructions and commands set by Allah, or lives according to what his desires dictate. Whether the faith he displays is firmly rooted in his heart, or is it merely on the surface. He will be tested to see whether he will continue to have faith and love of Allah when in a calamity, as he does when in comfort, whether he will continue to remember and worship him if given bounties and comforts of life, as he does when he lives a modest life. Allah will undoubtedly test him to see if his faith, trust and love of him is unconditional, or is it conditioned upon good health and a comfortable life, free from stress and anxiety. The Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam showed us through his own example that for a righteous Muslim, this life is a testing ground where he will continue to be tested until he meets Allah. For him, tests will be conducted on earth while he lives, and not after he dies. He knows that as soon as death arrives and he steps into the next world, his tests are over. There, he only receives the result of his tests and enjoys the fruits of the deeds that he committed during a short span of time called life.
Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah and welcome back. Adam says, I heard that some people will cross the sirat like lightning. Who are those people? Well, let us break it down. What is the sirat? Sirat is the way. But when we talk about the Day of Judgment, the word sirat has a particular meaning. And this refers to a bridge over the edges of hellfire. So in order to go to safety, you have to cross the bridge. Now this bridge is unlike any other bridge. First of all, on the Day of Judgment, when you cross the bridge, it would be pitch black. And people will be given light according to their good deeds. And this is mentioned in Surah Al-Hadid and also in Surah Al-Tahrim. The believers will be given light in front of them and to their right. The bridge width is also variable. So to those who have good deeds, it would be very wide. And for those who have bad deeds that are more than their good deeds, or have no good deeds to begin with, it would be as sharp as a blade and as thin as a hair. Thirdly, the speed of people crossing it also is variable. It varies. Some, as the Prophet told us, alayhi salatu wassalam, cross it in a blink of an eye. Others cross it in the speed of lightning. Others cross it as the speed of wind and hurricanes. And others cross it as if they are on the back of horses that are very fast. Others jog across. Others walk. And unfortunately, others walk and crawl sometimes because they fall. And others don't make it at all. Hooks from hellfire comes and picks them up and throws them in hell. So, who are those who are so fortunate to cross it in a blink of an eye? This is all dependent on your good deeds. The prophets stand at the side of the sirat, of this bridge, and they supplicate to Allah by saying, Allahumma sallim sallim. Oh Allah, make things go in safety and in good terms, because they're afraid for their people. Those who have good deeds, their good deeds will illuminate and give them light so they can see where they're walking and they do not slip and fall over. Their speed, the width, the light they're given, all is dependent on their good deeds. And we know that good deeds erase bad deeds. And this is why we tell you to always charge your credit. We always tell people, Akhi, make an extra umrah. Give charity for the cause of Allah. Pray few more rak'ahs before Fajr as night prayer. Maintain fasting Mondays and Thursdays every week, and the 3 white days if you can, every month. Try your level best to engage in dhikr 24/7. So when you're walking from your home to the masjid, don't think about the debts you have or about the things you want to do. Instead, just say Subhanallah, Alhamdulillah, Allahu Akbar, La ilaha illallah, wa la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah, as this elevates your level in paradise, increases your good deeds, erases your bad deeds. So that when it comes on the Day of Judgment for you to cross the sirat, then you would be in good hands with the grace of Allah. It's worth saying that only the Muslims and the hypocrites would cross this sirat. Disbelievers are taken initially and thrown into hell. So the only people who would cross the sirat are the believers and the semi-believers. And when we say the believers, we do not exclusively say that they are the Muslims, the followers of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. No, this includes the followers of Isa, of Jesus Christ, peace be upon him, until the time of our Prophet. These are considered to be Muslims. And also it includes the Jews who followed Moses until the time of Jesus, and all the followers of the previous messengers and prophets of Allah Azza wa Jal. Hamza says, in Saudi Arabia, when the congregation is over, the latecomers make another congregation. Is it from the Sunnah, and is it permissible? The vast majority of schools of thought say that this is permissible. And they have a hadith that backs it up. It was reported that the Prophet ﷺ, in an authentic hadith, offered Fajr prayer. And after they concluded their prayers, a latecomer came into the masjid. So the Prophet ﷺ addressed his companions who had just prayed Fajr. And he said to them, who among you would give charity to this man by praying with him? So one of the companions stood up and prayed with this man, a congregation of Fajr for the man, but it was a voluntary act of that companion. So this is the vast majority of scholars saying that this is permissible. There are some scholars who said that this is not permissible. And they quoted hadith from Anas ibn Malik, may Allah be pleased with him, and I think either Abdullah ibn Mas'ud or Abdullah ibn Umar, I forgot, who went to the masjid when the congregation was over, and each one of them prayed alone and not with his companions, who were also latecomers. And they thought that this is an evidence that the second congregation in the masjid is not permissible. And this is not correct, because the instruction of the Prophet ﷺ and the prayer of the companion who had just prayed Fajr in a second congregation is a clear indication that this is permissible. Of course, this is not recommended, but at the end of the day, the second congregation is valid. The third, the fourth, the reward is less and less and less, but it is a valid prayer. Rayana says, if we put on a fake tattoo, not a permanent one, that can be removed in a week, on a part that does not need to be washed in wudu, for instance, the leg, is it permissible? First of all, the word tattoo raises a lot of question marks, because tattooing is a major sin in Islam. The Prophet ﷺ, as in the hadith of Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, may Allah be pleased with him, had cursed the tattoo artists and the women who have the tattoos done on them. لَعَنَ اللَّهُ الْوَاشِمَةَ وَالْمُسْتَوْشِمَةَ. And this is an authentic hadith. Now, if what you're putting and applying is called tattoo metaphorically, but it is not, it does not fulfill the conditions of tattooing, and it does not fall under the category of it, because a 1 week tattoo is permissible. This is like applying henna, or what, as they call mehendi. So applying henna is not problematic because it takes a week, couple of weeks, 3 weeks, and it fades away. So Rayana's question has two parts. One, the ruling on applying a 1 week henna or a tattoo. Two, if it's longer, but it is not in the organs of wudu. These prints that you put on your body are either not allowing water to reach underneath because they form a layer, or water can reach the skin without a problem because they are not a layer but rather a color. So if I get something that is drawn on my arm, which is waterproof, and I can feel that this part of the skin is skin, and when I put it on this print or tattoo, quote unquote, it feels that like there's a plastic layer on my arm. This does not allow water to reach your skin, and hence you cannot apply this because your wudu would not be valid, your ghusl would not be valid. Now, if I apply it in my shoulder, for example, this is not part of the organs of wudu, so I can perform wudu without any problem. But if I were to have a major ritual impurity and I would need a ghusl, in this case, this would prevent my ghusl from being complete and valid, and hence applying it is not permissible. Henna, on the other hand, is something that you put for an hour or two until the color is fixed, and then you wash it off, and all what remains is a color. Like when I have a pen and I just write a line, there's no layer on the skin, it's just a color. And this does not prevent water from reaching the skin, and the wudu is valid. Having said that, I've noticed nowadays among the Muslims, men and women, unfortunately, that they're applying tattoos, but they apply it for a year or 2 years. Today in Fajr prayer, I saw a brother praying in the masjid with a big tattoo of a sailor's anchor on his leg, and it was exposed. The brother's awrah from the navel to the knees were covered, but his leg was not, and everybody in the masjid was looking at that. This is not permissible. If you had done a tattoo when you were ignorant or when you were a kafir and now you've accepted Islam, you must hide it. We don't force you to remove it, but you cannot expose it and boast about it like this. This defies your repentance of it. It shows that you're not remorseful. Also, a lot of the youngsters, girls, they have tattoos on their hands. And they say that this is only for 6 months, for a year. This is haram. This is the one that she was cursed for. She says, but this is not in the third layer of the skin where they put the ink after they make it bleed, etc. It's the same concept. First layer, third layer, it doesn't make a difference. Not only that, a lot of the women ask about microblading. And they say that this is something they do for the eyebrows. This is tattooing. Because they slash the skin until it bleeds, and they clean it, and they open small places in the skin's layer where they inject ink. So they draw a nicely formed eyebrow with this ink. and it shows with the remaining hairs of the eyebrows that it looks real and it looks fancy and it's fixed for 6 months, for a year, maybe 2 years. This process is cursed by Allah Azza wa Jal, because this is totally tattooing. Now Sachin says, can you please illustrate the usage of sutra for a person who prays at home where he or she is alone? Is it mustahab or wajib to use sutra when one knows nobody will come in front of him in his salat? And what must be the length of sutra? The majority of scholars say that sutra is recommended but not mandatory. Sutra is a foot high object or more that you pray in the direction so that it would be a visor or a screen between your prayer and those who pass beyond it. So it's a mark in front of you, telling everybody else that I'm praying and this is my zone, this is my privacy. You should not invade that area. So whenever someone wants to come, they come from beyond it, not between me and it. And if someone wanted to come between me and it while praying, I have to prevent them, stop them. And if they insist to come, I may push them and fight them. As in the hadith of Abu Sa'id Al-Khudri, and the Prophet told us to fight them because the one who is insisting to pass between my standing position and my sutra is a shaitan. He's a devil. So this is something serious. The Prophet said, alayhi salatu wasalam, if the passerby between a man praying and his sutra were to know the gravity of his sin, he would have stood there for 40 without crossing. So they asked Abu Hurairah, 40 hours, 40 days, 40 years, and he would not comment. He said just 40, meaning that this is a serious thing. Now, having said that, the majority of scholars commented in the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, when one of you is to pray, he should pray to a sutra, that this is a recommendation, because the Prophet had offered prayer in Mecca, when the people were doing tawaf without having a visor in front of him or a screen or a sutra. And therefore, if you pray in the masjid, your prayer is valid without a sutra. And definitely if you pray home when there is no one in your home and you don't fear anyone crossing in front of you, you can also pray not to a sutra. But having a sutra in front of you is highly recommended, not just only to notify people not to cross in front of you, but also due to the fact that it increases the amount of submissiveness and khushu' in your salat. When you have something that limits your eyesight from being distracted because it's in front of you and you keep on looking at your spot of prostration without being distracted, while if you don't have something in front of you, you may gaze here and there, then definitely it is better to have this in front of you when you want to pray. Usama says, is it an innovation to raise the index finger while reciting the Shahada, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lah, wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh, after completing the wudu? Now, in order to know whether this is an innovation or not, the only way to do so is to go to the books of hadith. Why is that? The books of hadith, or known as the books of Sunnah, describes to us what the Prophet had done, alayhi salatu wasalam, or said, or approved. Something that happened in front of him and he approved it. So by this we could tell whether this is a Sunnah or not. So if we go through the books of hadith and we find that it is part of the Sunnah to say the Shahada after wudu, or to say Allahumma ij'alni min at-tawwabin wa ij'alni min al-mutatahhirin, or to ask a non-Muslim to accept Islam by teaching him how to say the Shahada. Say, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh. In these cases, can we say Ashhadu as we sometimes do? I have done this so many times. When people ask me to say the Shahada, say Ashhadu an la ilaha. And when I look at the video once again, I said, where did I get this from? Unfortunately, some of the du'at, out of goodwill, when they teach others how to say the Shahada, they say Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, and they do this. And we pick it from them without contemplating. And we do it. But as a true Muslim and student of knowledge, you have to refer back to the books of Sunnah. And in the books of Sunnah, you will never find that the Prophet used to raise his index finger when finishing the wudu or when declaring the Shahada to non-Muslims to revert to Islam. So if the Prophet did not do it, alayhi salatu wasalam, this means that we should not do it because this is not part of the Sunnah. Hence, it would be an innovation. So once we finish the adhan, the wudu, we just simply say La ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abdu rasuluh. That's it. If someone wants to accept Islam, I would just tell him without pointing my index finger to the heavens, as lots of us may do, because this is not part of the way of the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam. This is all the time we have. Until we meet next time, I leave you fi amanillah. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.